All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the DATAcated show. I'm really excited to have our guest with us today, Randy Bean. He is the CEO of NewVantage Partners, and we're going to talk about his brand new book, Fail Fast, Learn Faster. It actually just launched, I'm going to say about 10 days ago, but we're going to have Randy confirm. Before I bring him on, I just want to let you know that we have some really fun giveaways for you today. Randy is generous enough to give away 3 of his new books, Fail Fast, Learn Faster. All you have to do is put in the comments hashtag Randy Bean. I'm going to go ahead and show you the hashtag that you should type in, hashtag Randy Bean, and that's going to enter you into the raffle. We're going to announce winners throughout the session. We'll probably announce a winner in the next 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and one towards the end of the conversation around the 45-minute mark. But definitely keep commenting to engage. We're taking questions from the live audience. I think that's my favorite part about LinkedIn Live and YouTube Live is that we can actually engage with the live audience. So definitely go ahead, put your questions in the chat. We'll take as many as we can. And also, as you're joining, I think it would be fun for you to let us know what book you're currently reading. It doesn't matter if it's a data book or any other type of book. It could be a comic book. Whatever you're reading, let us know in the comments so we get a sense for what you're up to. All right, I'm going to go ahead and bring Randy Bean up on our stage here. Hello, Randy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kate. It's so nice to see you and so nice to join you this morning.
I'm really excited for you because of your book launch. So first of all, congratulations. That's huge. Yes, let's see the book, Randy. Where's...
Here it is.
There it is. Congratulations.
There we go on that side. Let's see. There we go.
There we go. It's mirrored. Yes, it's always confusing. I've learned. See, this is the book. I've learned to do the opposite of what I think I should do.
And it's 3-dimensional.
Oh my goodness! So it actually exists.
That's a real book. You know, with a back cover, with praise and so forth.
With a barcode and everything.
Exactly.
Can you open it? Are there words inside?
Yeah, there's as a matter of fact, there's me.
Wait, that looks like you. I know this guy. Look at that.
So yeah, you can. Whoop, there you go.
There we go.
Can
awesome.
Get through it.
Well,
so, first, was released on August 31st, and the response has been very gratifying thus far. It's actually this morning. It's #1 on Amazon in the category of, I believe it's business consulting, #1 new release. So it's good to see that people are reading it, and obviously data is such a topic that's of interest to a very broad audience. And I tried to write the book not only for data practitioners, but business executives, line of business executives, CEOs, board members, as well as general readers, because I meet many people over the years and they say, what do you do? And I try to describe it. And it turns out that data is something that permeates all aspects of society, whether it's through the pandemic of the past couple of years and people tracking positivity rates, or developing vaccines and pulling together all of the information that you need to do that, or whether they're tracking political candidates and campaigns, it's in doing polls. It's all data driven. So we're truly in an age of disruption, big data, and AI, which is part of the title. So delighted to be here.
Awesome. Well, welcome again to the show, and huge congratulations on being #1 on the Amazon category. I know that's near impossible to get to these days. There's so many books out there, so many products to compete with. So huge congratulations. I see a lot of people are in the comments already saying, hashtag Randy Bean, and letting us know some of the books that they're reading. And we already have questions for you, Randy. So if you want, we can jump right into questions.
Whatever works.
All right. So Shruti is asking us if you can give an overview of what topics the book approaches. And I know you kind of mentioned a couple of those already, but maybe in general, what can a reader come away with after having read through your book?
Yeah, let me offer a perspective on what the book is, and then I'll talk about the specific themes that it covers. So really the driving theme of the book is, there's a couple driving themes, but it's now more than ever, organizations and individuals need to think about data and the role that it plays. And to compete in an era of disruption, big data, and AI, organizations need to do a number of things. They need to act faster, and that relates to the title, fail fast, learn faster. They need to think differently. In other words, they need to develop a different mindset because data is an asset that flows across the organization. So organizations, particularly legacy organizations, are, they're used to thinking about products and lines of businesses, and maybe even over the past 25 or 30 years about customers, but they haven't really thought about what is the best way to manage data as an enterprise asset and get people to share data. There aren't necessarily incentives, and so there's the perpetuation of silos. There's also ethical consequences, and that's a chapter and an increasingly important theme for organizations and in society in general, because data can be used to great benefit. It can help you serve your customers better. It can help you create a better customer experience, but it can also be cherry-picked and presented very selectively and used to support just about any argument if it's cherry-picked in that way. And so those are some of the major themes of the book. Maybe I could read from the opening lines of the book, and then I could speak a little bit about what the various sections are. So the book starts off as follows, and this really tries to establish the tone. So the world is in a race to become data-driven, now more than ever. The warp speed effort to organize scientific and epidemiological data from across the globe in a heroic effort to find a COVID-19 vaccine has illustrated the urgency and existential nature of this quest. We need data, science, facts, knowledge, and insight to make informed, wise, and critical decisions. Now more than ever, data matters, and having good data matters tremendously. So that's the tone I try to establish in the book. And it's divided into 10 chapters. Tom Davenport provided the foreword. Tom Davenport, who wrote Competing on Analytics and 18 other books, and is a co-author of mine for a number of articles for Harvard Business Review and MIT Sloan Review. So the 10 chapters in which the book is organized, the first one is called A Little History of Big Data.
I like that.
I try to have fun with some of the names of these chapters. So it's really a perspective over the past generation. I've been in the business for a few decades now. So where have organizations been? How have they evolved? What's changed? What's really the same old, same old? And what does this mean in terms of the future of the data profession, how things are going to evolve over the next decade? Because it really is a long-term journey. And, when I started in the profession, 30, 35 years ago, there was the expectation that a lot of things would change immediately, and they've taken a lot of time. New sources of data proliferate, the volumes of data proliferate, new sources of data are created. Unstructured data is becoming a major factor. I was speaking to the founder of a major AI company, a young guy, about 23, 24 years old, PhD. His company now has a $6 or $7 billion valuation, and they're focused exclusively on mining unstructured data. So a lot of things happening, both historically and the future. So that's chapter one. Chapter two is Think Different, Becoming Data-Driven, and it actually begins with a quote that I borrowed, and I'm probably going to be answering all the questions in just this first part, but I'll try to keep it succinct. So the second chapter of the book, it begins with a quote, and it's borrowed from the Apple marketing campaign of the late 1990s. And it says, here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. So that's really setting the stage for this discussion about why a different mindset's required. It doesn't mean that you have to be crazy, but it does mean that you have to think outside the box and think about new ways to structure organizationally and think about data as an enterprise asset. From there, I moved into a chapter called Insight and Knowledge, Data, Science, and Facts, and talks a lot about how data is being used across industries. I use several examples from COVID and positivity tests to really make the point that data and science and facts have become prevalent in our world, not just for data professionals. I then moved to a discussion of the state of data in the corporate world today, borrowing information from the annual survey that conducted of leading Fortune 1000 companies, and just to point out something there, because these are compelling pieces of information. When we conduct this survey each year, we ask, for example, what percentage of you are driving innovation with data? And 97% of the respondents are C executives from Fortune 1000 companies. 48.5% say they're driving innovation with data. 41.2% say they're competing on data and analytics. 39.3% said they're managing data as a business asset. 24.4% have forged a data culture, and 24% have created a data-driven organization. So, we've been at this a long time, but there's a lot of work to do, which both points to the challenges as well as the opportunities for the data profession going forward. So just to spin through the rest of the chapters, the next chapter, chapter 5, is called The Great Challenge, Establishing a Data Culture, because also in the survey, 90% of the respondents indicate that it's not about technology that's their impediment to success, it's cultural issues. So that's really kind of the core chapter of the book, and right in the middle. After that, chapter 6 is the rise of the chief data officer. So talking about how organizations have invested in data leadership and how that's progressing. Chapter 7 is data responsibility, a word on data ethics. So that's where I talk about the risks and some of the issues that organizations are facing in terms of data responsibility. And then closes with 3 chapters, one on data disruption and innovation. It talks about how firms are using data to innovate in their business and how other businesses are innovating. A glimpse of the future, which talks about data-driven AI. And the book closes with a chapter called Data-Driven Leadership, One Company's Odyssey. And I focus on one particular firm, which happens to be American Express. I interviewed with them, worked with their top executives over the course of a decade, and so had various checkpoints along the way. And that included both successes and failures, and how they righted themselves and how they learned from the experience, hence fail fast, learn faster. And that's where I closed the book. So sorry for the long answer to the question.
No, I think it's very helpful. I think it helps us set the stage so people can really know what to expect in a book. So I think that was really helpful. I do have a follow-up question on the survey that you mentioned. I think you said it's an annual survey and you've been doing this for quite some time. And for the majority, it's about, I guess, C-suite executives. The question is, have you seen, let's say in the past few years, the percentage of companies that are data-driven go up or down from the survey?
Yeah, so I'll actually look at I'll actually give you the numbers. Here's a picture of the survey. So it's published annually. We've been doing it since 2012. It's targeted senior C-suite executives. So just in terms of breakdown, 76% of the survey respondents hold the role of chief data and analytics officer for a Fortune 1000 company. Okay. And then the remainder of the respondents are chief information officers, some CEOs, and chief marketing and chief digital officers. So in terms of the very precise question, actually those numbers are largely unmoved, or they've actually declined a little bit. Oh, and when people hear that, they say, what is that attributed to? And I mean, some people have asked whether that was attributed to COVID and the pandemic, but based upon looking deeper, the answer that I'm going to give is it's actually a more realistic assessment and self-assessment by organizations. In other words, over the course of the past decade, when the chief data officer role was established, there was an expectation among a lot of organizations that, okay, I've heard that from Fortune 1000 CEOs, okay, we've appointed a chief data officer, so therefore tomorrow we'll be data driven, we'll have a data culture, and we'll be competing on data and analytics. And they've come to realize that it's a long-term journey. It's a process. There's issues of organizational alignment, change management, recreation of business processes, all that have to be dealt with. So I think the decline in the respondents that are indicating that they're driving innovation with data, or competing on data and analytics, or forged a data culture, is really a more realistic assessment of where the organizations stand. And I've been asked, is this bad news? And I think it's not bad news at all. I think it's really good news, because it points to the tremendous opportunities for the data profession over the next few decades to help work with organizations to truly make them data-driven. I think that organizations are becoming much more realistic about what that takes. It will still take time, but it's always good to start from a baseline of realistic expectations.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that with the audience. It is actually almost time for that first giveaway, because we are about a third of the way through. So I just want to remind people that if you'd like to enter the raffle to win Randy's book, you just have to type in #RandyBean. As we give folks another minute or so to get their hashtags in, we'll take a question here from the audience. And the question is there a digital version of the book for iPads or Kindles? This individual does not like paper anymore. So.
Yeah, it's funny, because people definitely have their preferences. And when the book was, or even in the pre-publication, there was various versions. So the short answer is yes, there's a Kindle version, and you can order that on Amazon today. I know that the publisher shipped a lot of ebook versions internationally, because they arrived quicker than paper versions. But yes, there is a Kindle version on Amazon, and that too is on the bestseller list.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right, awesome.
That's expensive. It's $16 versus $27 apparently.
Okay, all right. Well, if it's on the bestseller list with both editions, that's even a bigger congratulations. So that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and run our very first drawing here. So good luck, everybody. And we'll follow up with winners in the next couple of days. But I'm just going to jot this down quickly. So first of all, congratulations to Dave. Congratulations. We are going to follow up after the live session to let you know how you can get a copy of this book for free.
Congratulations, Dave.
Awesome. All right. We've got a question here from Deepak, and he's asking, can this book be directly read by somebody who's new to data, or do you think there's some prerequisites before folks pick up the book?
Yeah, it presumes no understanding of data necessarily. As mentioned, I wrote it for 3 different audiences. Some of my initial presentations or speaking with different groups have been to people that had no knowledge of data at all. And what I was trying to really do was present a picture how data impacts them and is relevant to them and is meaningful to them. So, I don't try to speak about specific algorithms. I don't try to speak about different data engineering approaches or platforms. It's really about key themes. Each chapter actually begins with, because I speak to different audiences, each chapter begins with a literary quote, which is kind of a fun thing in the book. So it's written to provide historical context. It's written to make it accessible. It's written to humanize the data profession. So no previous knowledge required. At the same time, when I wrote the book, I realized that there were data professionals that really want to get some substance and meat out of the book. And that's why I included 25 case studies borrowed from organizations that have worked with or interviewed over the past decade. And those are very substantive, large financial services firms, life sciences and healthcare firms, the Pentagon. So when I was writing the book, I was thinking like, okay, some people will say it's all style and no substance, and some people will say it's all substance and no style. So it's trying to like strike that balance to deal with these big themes, but also provide some very substantive content as well.
Awesome. So there's no mathematical equations or blocks of code in there that will scare off the beginners or non-data technical folks.
Yeah, absolutely not. If there was, I wouldn't have been able to like pass the test myself. I actually have a number of neighbors and people on the streets, and they say, "Oh, I've bought your book," and these are people that are doctors, lawyers, healthcare workers, artists, musicians, actors, things that have nothing to do with data. And I said, "Has it put you to sleep yet?" And they said, "No, we actually find it really interesting. And it's really interesting what some of these companies are doing with data. And it's interesting because, I receive these offers or when I go on the internet, there's various things that pop up that are things that actually interest me. And I was wondering, how did they get inside my head to know this stuff?" So I'm like, yeah, it's like they know everything all about you.
Yes, that's good. That's good that you're teaching the non-data folks about how their data is being used. That's really important. Have you started giving out autographs to your neighbors and friends, or do you sign the books that do people come to your house that know you bought your book?
Yeah, your book will be a signed copy.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm still waiting for it, guys. I've not received Randy's book yet. I've seen the preview of it, but I'm really looking forward to having the book in hand. We predict it'll be here sometime right after we end the live show, so just in time delivery. We've got a question here from Ravit. He said he's asked you this question on the Ravit show before, but he thinks it'll be interesting for the audience here. And the question is, do you think that your book is evergreen, or do you think there will be another edition soon?
By evergreen, I guess that means that it's like timeless.
Yep, non-changing, yes.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I wrote the book November through January, and I had resisted writing a book for many years. I've been writing articles for the column for the Wall Street Journal, then Harvard Business Review, Forbes, and MIT Sloan Review. But those were relatively easy. A column's 1,000 words, and you can write about something thematic one day, and you can do a deep dive industry case study the next. But a book is something that is thematically coherent. So when I was asked to write the book, I first declined. I said, "Can I write a memoir?" And they said, "Absolutely not. We need a business how-to book of some form." So I tried to combine the two things. It's a little bit of my experience as witness to the data revolution over the past 35 years. Mm-hmm. But after I wrote the book, things continue to evolve. So, for example, this is funny. There's one part in the book where former governor of New York, Mario Cuomo, had stated in the early days of the pandemic, we need data science and facts to guide our decision making. And so in the book, I portrayed this as like good advice and good wisdom. And then all of the issues came up about that he hadn't necessarily followed that advice in terms of information from the assisted living and nursing homes that had been excluded and this type of stuff. So in the final edited version of the book, I qualified that a little bit, and I said, Governor Andrew Cuomo said we should follow data science and facts, but he may not have fully followed his own advice, et cetera. And then 2 months later, he was resigning from office. So some of those things are moments in time, but try to write it from a timeless nature.
Right. And I think people would probably want another edition, maybe 5-10 years from now, just to kind of, because things move fast, right? You said
they move very fast,
and everything moves fast these days. So I think the next 5 years is going to feel like the last 50 in terms of all the changes that can happen. And I'm sure your readers would love to hear more from you. I mean, you're number one on Amazon, right? That's a clear sign that you should start working on your next book already.
Well, I think they slice those categories pretty narrowly.
But still, number one, I mean, that's huge. You should be proud of it. I'm sure you are. There's a question here that you've sort of touched on already, but let's just ask it again. The question is, do you cover samples, use cases, and maturity levels of some markets or in sectors? So maybe do a deeper dive on that.
Yeah, so there's, as alluded to, there's roughly 25 case studies in the book, and it ranges from American Express, Morgan Stanley, Charles Schwab, Cigna, Anheuser-Busch, the Pentagon. I'm just trying to think of some of them. And they're organized within the specific chapters. So some of them are about how organizations are using data-driven AI in their business. Some are about the cultural challenges that organizations face and how they're addressing those through data democratization or data literacy activities of that kind. So yeah, it's very much grounded in real world examples of what organizations are doing to be successful. And in the chapter on ethics, there's case studies on data for good initiatives, such as the MasterCard Center for Inclusive Growth, the Bloomberg Social Good Initiative. So there's topics that are just not exclusively to business, but to the broader uses of data for social benefit and value.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I think that helps make it a lot more relatable to a wider audience when you can include those case studies. You mentioned earlier that people, well, I guess executives and others will have to act faster. So my question to you is why? And the follow-up question, how? How do they actually do this? We might be all on the same page and say, yes, everyone has to act faster. But how do we actually do that?
Yeah, so let me, so the chapter, or one of the chapters in terms of what organizations need to do, I started off in this way. Individuals and organizations learn through experience, and experience entails trial and error. One of the ways big data has helped fuel rapid innovation is through faster iterative learning. Fail fast, learn faster, execute smarter. So the title of the book is actually borrowed from, and this goes back to my literature roots, the Irish playwright Samuel Beckett, who in one of his books wrote, "Ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better." So it really represents experimentation, test and learn in the data science world, promoting the idea of organizations setting up centers of excellence, analytic sandboxes, big data labs, innovation centers, activities of that kind. Paul Saffo, the futurist, states failure is the foundation of innovation. John Bottega, president of the EDM Council and former CDO at Bank of America, Citigroup, and the New York Federal Reserve, states, failure is informative. Even with imperfect data, business analysts gain insight and knowledge with respect to the viability of an approach or hypothesis. So, part of the thinking here is that organizations need to be taking action, that they can't wait. And also, they can't wait for the perfect solution. There's the quote from the French philosopher Voltaire that says, "Perfect is the enemy of good." Sometimes the term analysis paralysis. So innovative organizations need to be trying things all of the time. One of the organizations that I talk about extensively in the book is Capital One. Capital One is now one of the leading banks in the US, but unlike all of the other major banks who are basically legacy organizations that have existed for many generations or even more than a century, Capital One has existed for less than a generation roughly. And it was data and innovation folks who founded the firm and really thought about how they could apply data and analytics to issues of banking and credit card issuance and serving underserved markets. So they're an example of an organization that has come into a traditional industry, has innovated significantly. And one thing that I'd add is that people often ask me, who are the most innovative firms that I've worked with in my experience, and what are their characteristics? And I tell them that the characteristics are that they're never satisfied, they're never complacent, they're always looking over their shoulder, they're always concerned whether there's a better way to do things. And when I worry is when I go into organizations and they say, oh, no, we're all set, we have it all figured out, we have things under control. Because things continue to change, and I've seen, over the course of my career, going into organizations that 15 years ago or 10 years ago or 5 years ago were leaders in terms of what they were doing relative to data and analytics, and they're not the leaders today because they didn't continue to innovate. They got comfortable, they got complacent, they stayed in one place, they didn't push the edge. And every time I talk to Capital One, they're always like, what are you seeing in fintech? Is JP Morgan doing something now that's interesting? Who else should we be worried about? So they're thinking in a very creative and innovative fashion.
Yeah, that's great to hear these stories. I wanted to ask, you mentioned John Bottega. Did you get a chance to interview him for the book, or was that a quote from somewhere else?
Actually, I know John well. He's on the advisory board of my company, NewVantage Partners.
Okay.
We've worked together over the years. I just did a session with him about a month ago on the evolving role of the chief data officer as part of a webinar. And he and the EDM Council put out a very nice piece last week promoting the book to their membership.
Oh, very nice. Yeah, I met John when he was the chief data officer over at Bank of America, and I was there. I was consulting for them, so that was fun. Great guy. I just wanted to let folks know we're about to do the second giveaway, and just a quick flash reminder there. Oh, well, I guess we still see the prior winner, but the hashtag is #RandyBean, and we're going to do that giveaway in just a minute. While we wait for additional folks to get the chance to put their hashtags into the comments, my question to you, Randy, is, at the start of the conversation, you sort of walked us through the 10 chapters that you've outlined. And moment of truth now, what is your favorite chapter? What was it? What was the favorite one to write? What's your favorite one to talk about or to read out loud to people?
Yeah, my favorite chapter is the chapter on data ethics, because it's the one that's most unlike the rest of the book. The rest of the book could be taken as an advocacy for the data profession and saying, you should be doing data and analytics work. These are great companies, these are great roles. And then all of a sudden I put up the stop sign and I say, but, these are things to worry about. And in the reviews of the book, a couple of people said, which I think is funny because they kind of nailed it in terms of what I was trying to convey. David Edelman, who was the chief marketing officer at Aetna and led McKinsey's digital marketing practice, he called the book inspiring and terrifying. So the inspiring part was all of the great things that organizations were doing to learn from their data and serve their customers better. But the terrifying part was to hear about some of these issues that can be confronted from a data ethics perspective. And Cindy Housen from the Data Chief podcast, she called the book both inspiring and cautionary. So, I'll read a quote that I have in the book, and it's borrowed from a writer, Greg Estabrook, writing in the Washington Post in 2018. And he writes, "Big data is the big bad of our moment. Companies and governments amass enormous troves of information about our online and offline activities so they can understand them better than we do. Creepy firms like Cambridge Analytica mine big data from websites such as Facebook. Facebook itself seems increasingly creepy, grounded in lying to the public about what happens to the data it collects." So, I didn't shy away from some of the critics. Some people may be familiar with Kathy O'Neill's book, Weapons of Math Destruction. It's a very controversial book. There's people that are in the data profession that have been in it for many generations, and they told me that they were personally offended by the book and they thought it was a simplistic cheap shot, but it became a New York Times bestseller. It talks about algorithmic bias. There's many points of view on things. And I have this presentation that I give that has a picture of Kathy O'Neill's weapons of math destruction. It also has a picture of Kellyanne Conway. It's a cartoon picture, and it says, we need to follow alternative facts. So, the point is that, data can be presented and cherry-picked in a variety of ways. It can support and justify just about any argument, even when people aren't, maliciously intentioned. It's not uncommon, I've experienced, that the same set of data is presented in a corporate boardroom, and depending upon what the responsibilities of the executives are, they come to different interpretations. Some may say this means we should grow our markets here. Others say this means that we should maintain these markets and grow other markets. So it's the same data, but it's the interpretations are subjective and based upon the vantage point of the people interpreting that data.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Data ethics and AI ethics is extremely important. I've actually read Kathy's book. Well, I listened to the audiobook while running, and I got the chance to interview her for my Mothers of Data Science book. So that was really fun to actually have a conversation with her. She's a very, very cool individual. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and run the giveaway for book number 2. So good luck, everybody. And Dave, if you come up as a winner again, we're just going to draw again. Sometimes StreamYard selects the same person, which is pretty funny. When people are lucky, there we go. Kiruba, congratulations. We're going to follow up with you after the session. So huge congratulations. We do have one more book left, which we will save for the very end of the session. And we're going to move on to answering more questions and asking Randy any question that we can come up with here. I just saw Yvonne was just, I guess you're just posting your full title. I actually wanted to ask you about the title, because I think you had a story behind the title itself and how you ended up sort of fighting to make sure that title stuck with the book. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So originally I was watching, the U.S. Open Grand Slam tournaments on now, and a few years ago I was watching it was probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I was watching one of the Grand Slam tennis tournaments, and they had the Swiss tennis player, not Roger Federer, the other one, Stan Wawrinka, and he had this massive tattoo that was all these words tattooed on his arm. And I focused in on that, and it said, fail fast, learn, ever tried, fail fast, learn better. That quote from Samuel Beckett. Now, I wasn't familiar with the quote at the time, but when I looked that up and typed it in on Google, it came back that this was a quote from Samuel Beckett. And I thought, wow, that's perfect in terms of just anything in life, in terms of learning and growing and learning from experience in professional sports or business or whatever it is that you do. So I had immediately focused on that and fixated on that as the title of the book and the predominant theme. When basically went through the process with the publisher, I wrote the title, I wrote the book, and so forth. And I think they sent it back to me and they said, this book is great. We're going to accept it as is, and we're going to call it like AI in the 21st century. And I'm like, what? There's like one chapter in AI, and I'm not purporting to be like this massive AI expert. It's only in the context of data-driven AI. And I wrote this book for this reason, and everything in the book is kind of follows from that mindset. So it's really this fail fast, learn faster theme really holds everything together within the book. And I said, so I won't change it. And I was speaking with Tom Davenport, who had written 18 books, and he said, wow. He said that the publisher always has the final say in the title. He says, I submit all these books, but then they put whatever title on it that they want. He said, I'd be surprised if you win that one. I said, oh, really? Because the title was really important to me. But they came back to me and said, yep, we're good with that.
Okay, good. Well, I'm glad you stuck by it and you were up for that challenge. That's good.
Yeah, I didn't know any better.
Yeah, sometimes that helps. We've got a question here from Dr. Scher. How can smaller companies benefit from this approach? I guess this fail fast, learn faster approach, because they always seem to hesitate to even try.
Yeah, I mean, I'm CEO of a small company that started 20 years ago in 2001. So small companies have certain, there's certain things that they can't do as well, but there's certain things that they can do as well. One of those things that they can do well is be nimble. So
Mhm.
small, you can dart around and do a lot of different things. And I have to compete with the Accentures and McKinseys and Deloittes, and that can be hard from the perspective of their well-known name brands that are known in the corporate Fortune 1000 C-suite. But at the same time, we can be more adaptive, we can be more flexible, we can jump on new trends and new approaches much more rapidly. So I'm a huge proponent of small organizations, and I think that small organizations can be very agile and can be the leaders of the future. I mean, even Amazon started very small. I remember when Amazon started and when it was small.
Yeah, so I think a follow-up question to this, what advice would you give to either smaller companies, or if you'd like, you can make this more broad and target all companies who are trying to, I guess, get better at being data-driven? What are some immediate actions that they can take, maybe in the next few months, to be more data-driven?
Yeah, I always encourage organizations, regardless of their size, to focus on business value, and that's also a subcontext, a sub-theme in the book, and that is that often I see. So I'll describe it this way: I go into many organizations and I'll meet with the data teams, and they'll talk to me about the robust capabilities that they've created, and I said, "Wow, this is very impressive." And then I'll meet with technology teams, and they'll say, "Oh, here's the platform and architecture, and here's our long-term vision, and here's what we've created." And I'll say, "Wow, that's really impressive, very fascinating, thank you." Then I'll meet with the line of business executives, and they'll say, "Yeah, we don't have confidence in the data. We're not getting the data that we need. We're not getting it with the timeliness that we need it." So the data teams may be very enthusiastic and have created all these capabilities, and the technology teams may be enthusiastic and have created these capabilities, but we're not yet seeing the business value. So that really points to those cultural challenges. So what I try to encourage organizations to do is to start with a few very simple business questions. You can start with one and try to identify what's the most important business question that you have that you're not able to answer today with the data that you have. And then you don't have to go back and get all of the data, but you just have to identify the data that's relative to answering that question. And once you've answered that question, that establishes some level of credibility and trust in the relationship between the business owners and the data and technology teams. And then you identify a next question and you repeat that process. And when you've done it a third time and a fourth time, not only does it deepen the credibility and deepen the relationship, but it also builds momentum. So in the most successful organizations, really see them going through that process of taking one step at a time, getting started slow, but really focus on business value and key business questions and doing it one at a time. And from my experience, that's been the greatest foundation for long-term success.
Randy, did you just say start slow? I never thought I'd hear you use that word.
Yeah, we'll start slow but fail fast.
Right. So I guess pick a good business case, start on a smaller scale, use that momentum, and most importantly, I guess build that trust at the get-go to help you with that growth, right?
Yeah, and maybe I could rephrase that. It's not so much start slow, but it's start small. And by starting small, you can be fast and agile because you don't have to create a massive infrastructure. You don't have to pull together all of the data when the business may only benefit from a small percentage.
Yeah, I guess to me, moving slow could also be interpreted as moving in a strategic manner. So not trying to do everything at once. So I just had to say it.
We can have it both ways, always.
Yes, exactly. Question for you in terms of audiobooks. Do you plan to turn this into an audiobook at some point?
Yeah, actually, very early on, the publisher said this has been selected to be an audiobook, and we're having some actor read it. I don't think it's John Hamm, but it's some actor, and I believe the audiobook will be available roughly 6 weeks after the publication date last week.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's fast. I was actually thinking you would narrate it because, well, we heard you read a few clips today, so I thought, we'll be able to hear the full book on audio version.
Well, it's one thing to read, 50-word excerpts. It's another thing to read 65,000 words.
Yes, I get it. I actually sometimes don't listen to audiobooks because of the authors. Like, if I don't like the way they sound, I'm like, okay, next. So I think I'm not saying you sound bad, or I'm just saying it's important for.
Well, you get that Boston accent, and I've even, it's nothing compared to what it could be, because I sometimes describe it as being right out of Goodwill Hunting, or Hunting, as we say.
Hunting, yeah. Well, for example, The Wolf on Wall Street, I don't know if you've read the book or listened to the book, but he reads his own book, and he's got an accent, but it helps. Like, you can really hear his, personality come through in the audiobook. All right, before we do the final giveaway, I want to ask and, tell the audience, where can people go to actually get this book?
You can go to Amazon.com, which is very convenient.
Yes.
But it's also available on a whole list. It's available on Barnes & Noble. Discounted bulk book sales are available through Porchlight Books. There's a landing site for the book called failfastlearnfaster.org. So that's failfastlearnfaster.org, and it has actually excerpts from all of the advanced reviews and critical praise, and that includes reviews from people like some of the ones I mentioned, but also Jeffrey Moore, who wrote Crossing the Chasm, who states, Fail Fast, Learn Faster is a wonderful horde of business anecdotes. Big data is indeed crossing the chasm. Don Peppers and Martha Rogers, who 20 odd years ago wrote the breakthrough book, One-to-One Marketing, One-to-One Future. They call it a whirlwind tour of real world business cases. If you want to learn faster, then start with this book. Cam Carey, who's a fellow at the Brookings Institution, whose brother ran for president in 2004, calls the book lively, explores how data has become an essential element of business strategy in the 21st century, on and on. Allison Sargraves, the chief data officer at M&T Bank, says Randy Bean is the preeminent writer on the modern data revolution. So
Wow.
So
wow, look at that. I love hearing all that praise. That's amazing. And we've actually got Scott Williams putting the link into the chat here, so people can go ahead and get the book if they haven't already. Thank you, Scott. That helps a lot. I was actually trying to look for the link so I could share it in the comments as well. So he's helped me there. I'm going to do a quick raffle again just to announce our third winner. So we've got Dave, we got Kiruba, and our third winner is Osama. Congratulations, Osama. We're going to follow up with you after the session. I hope everybody had fun, and thank you for playing our little raffle game here. Randy, if people have more questions for you, where can they go to continue the conversation?
They can reach me at rbean@newvantage.com. They can follow me on LinkedIn at Randy Bean, and they can follow me on Twitter at Randy Bean MVP.
Okay, lots of ways, folks, to reach Randy. And I want to thank everybody for joining us here today. And a huge thank you to Randy for providing some great insights. big congratulations to you again on publishing the book, having it in hand. I'm sure is already a huge accomplishment, but then being #1 on Amazon with both the hard copy and the e-copy. So huge congratulations, Randy. I will see everybody online. Stay DATAcated, and hope to see you at the DATAcated Expo in October. All right. With
Thank
that,
you.
thank you, and have a great rest of your day.